Hey guys, coming at you today with a super simple recipe for a delicious holiday candy, some keto York Peppermint Patties. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia. I'm a pastry chef with a sweet tooth. Now I own a keto gluten-free bakery, and I'm here to show you all the tips and tricks on how to make the best recipes possible. So if you enjoy my recipes, please hit the subscribe button down there, give the video a thumbs up, leave me comments, and share with all your friends and family. It all helps me, my bakery, my channel grow and bring you new videos every week and some bonus videos. Today, some York Peppermint Patties made keto. Now, they kind of lend themselves good to keto because we already have the cooling effect of erythritol, but I tried just making a recipe with just the erythritol, which is what a regular recipe is. It's just butter, corn syrup, and a crap ton of powdered sugar. Like, we're making a half batch today, and a half batch would have 240 grams. That's how much I use in a full batch. So I literally cut the erythritol in half because with the erythritol and the peppermint, it was just too much. And I wanted the flavor, that really nice flavor of peppermint, not just the cooling burn of the erythritol. So like, I didn't want to just eliminate the peppermint extract and just use erythritol as like my peppermint, you know? So I messed with this a little bit to cut down the erythritol, and I ended up adding some whey protein to get it to come together as a dough. And I think the texture is much better and it doesn't burn. It's just more of a pepperminty flavor instead of peppermint and burn of too much erythritol. So let's hop right into the recipe. Okay, so if you saw one of my midweek recipe videos, you know that I came out with a keto corn syrup recipe. This will work with keto corn syrup, or if you have like an allulose syrup. I will be coming out with a video to make your own of that, but I have my keto corn syrup here. I just had it on my stove in front of the warm air to get it a little bit more like flowing. But I just weigh everything because it's so much easier that way. I'm gonna start the recipe with butter and the corn syrup. I'm gonna get the butter in there first though. So I'm doing a half batch. It definitely doubles fine. I did that yesterday. It's just the fact that I have 26 plus another couple batches that I've already done. So I'm just gonna do a half batch, but these last forever in the fridge. I think they're kind of better out of the fridge, although I like a lot of my candy in the fridge, but they will stay out on the countertop fine too. We just need 2 tablespoons of butter, or 1 ounce, which I use salted butter. The ingredients of a York Peppermint Patty are just like palm oil or shortening, sugar and corn syrup, and then the chocolate layer. And I think there is a little bit of salt, and I think it tastes better with a little bit of vanilla too, which it just says natural and artificial flavors. So I'm sure there's probably some vanilla in there too, and peppermint oil. So 28 grams or 2 tablespoons. Butter is nice and soft. You're basically making like a rolled buttercream frosting because it's just a little bit of butter, a lot of powdered sweetener. The corn syrup just gives a little bit of chew to the center of the York Peppermint Patty. But as you know, our corn syrup is a little bit thicker than regular corn syrup, so we are gonna add water to this. If you're using the allulose syrup, you don't need to add anything to it. Just add the same grams of the allulose syrup as you would the corn syrup. I'm gonna spread out my butter a little bit so that all of the corn syrup doesn't get stuck on the bottom of the bowl. The full batch, it's much easier to do it in a stand mixer, but for a half batch, it's such a small amount that it doesn't really work in a stand mixer. So 40 grams of corn syrup. Will it come out? And I basically just followed like a regular homemade York Peppermint Patty recipe. That's it in there. Gotta go wash my hands now. To the corn syrup and butter, we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of peppermint extract and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. I got the pure peppermint extract from McCormick, but it does not pour well, so I bought this squeeze bottle. I actually had it laying around. I didn't want to buy anything else, so it's not perfect. I need a smaller opening still, but it's better than that bottle. Like, it poured so badly. I kept over pouring. Frustrating. The amount of peppermint and vanilla in this is totally up to you though. So once you get the dough all made, if you think it needs more, you can add more at the end. We're gonna beat that up until it's all combined. Should be like a thick paste. There you go. Throw all your butters off your spatula and whisked into there. Okay, now we're gonna add 120 grams of a powdered erythritol. I feel like an erythritol allulose would work, bocha sweet would work. Powdered allulose completely on its own might make it kind of soft after a while, just because that happens with a lot of allulose in something. The allulose syrup that we put in here definitely helps keep the inside real soft even in the refrigerator, but I worry that if you add all powdered allulose, it would be way too soft and you wouldn't even be able to dip it, because a lot of times the allulose things that I make don't even freeze solid in the freezer and are super soft. So trying to dip something that soft in chocolate might be pretty difficult. Now this with a hand mixer is a little bit tough because you don't want it blowing all over the place. So you might want to give it a little initial mix. Might be a little tough. Start on a real low speed. Not gonna look like it's gonna come together, but it will. But we will add 1 tablespoon of water just because our corn syrup is a little bit thicker and, you know, stiffer than a regular corn syrup. So at this point, add the 1 tablespoon of water. That's gonna help melt your erythritol a little bit. That's the only complaint I have, is that it's a little bit grainy still, which it's always our problem with keto sweeteners. They just don't melt as much as regular sugar does. Okay, it's coming together. Now, in a regular recipe, this would be a dough already because there's so much powdered sugar in it. But instead of more powdered sugar, I decided to do some unflavored whey protein isolate. You can definitely use like a flavored protein powder. I was thinking about using vanilla flavored in here, but there's a lot of added ingredients on that, and these peppermint patties are on my peppermint brownies that are on my website. So I didn't want to have the nutrition label like insanely long because this is only 2 ingredients. The vanilla and stuff has like a bunch of vitamin and mineral blends to it. So I decided to opt out of the flavored, but you definitely could use a flavored. So I'm using 1 scoop for a half batch, 29 grams. I also added a 1/4 teaspoon of stevia to this because with the added protein powder and the lack of powdered sugar that we're putting in here, and allulose isn't as sweet as regular sugar or corn syrup, they didn't seem as sweet to me as they should be. But you can add the stevia at the end if you want. If it's sweet enough for you, don't worry about even adding it. I'm only adding 1/8 of a teaspoon. And then adding all the protein powder. I like to whip it up kind of a lot so that, you know, you can get the sweetener as much dissolved as possible, but it's pretty much done. So you can try it at this point. If you like it, you can keep beating pepperminty, a little bit chewy from that corn syrup. I'm just gonna keep beating that until it's a little bit more dissolved in there. Try to get as much off your beater as you can. Okay, that's it. See, it's kind of like sticky from the allulose corn syrup. Now we roll them out. Okay, now I have a sheet tray with parchment paper. A lot of the recipes, I think all the recipes, rolled out the dough and punched it out with a cookie cutter. I hate rolling out dough. If I don't have to, I'm not gonna. And I think these look more like the shape of peppermint patties because I squish them down and they end up getting that kind of rounded edge on them. That reminds me of a peppermint patty. So this is how I do it. And our dough is a little bit too sticky because I was supposed to add only a half tablespoon of water. So mine are gonna be a little bit softer than yours. I'll put up a note obviously when I do that, because I made a full batch yesterday with the corn syrup and I added a tablespoon of water. Should be a little bit more dough-like, but it seems to still be working fine. I was debating now, do I make a whole batch? Do it all over again? This isn't something we're baking, so it doesn't have to be like super precise. Just making some delicious candies. It's gonna taste good still. They just might be a little bit softer in the center. I have a bunch of my ones that I made yesterday that were the exact same recipe, so I can always cut one of those open and show you. So I'm just using my small metal scoop. I'll have these linked down below. I believe this is a tablespoon, and then the sizes are a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons. So I ended up getting more peppermint patties because we added that little bit extra. So yours will be a lot easier to work with than mine, but roll them into a ball, put them down. If you're making a full batch, it really matters how you put them down on the sheet tray because you won't have enough room once you go to squish them. You gotta do 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3 so that you'll fit all of the peppermint patties on there. It's almost like, feels like cornstarch almost. You know, it's like sticky but not sticky at the same time. Solid but liquid. I always liked playing with cornstarch when I was younger. We are gonna chill these for good long while. I'm probably going to have to do these for a little bit longer, but when I did all my tests, I set a timer for 10 minutes and then I started melting my chocolate. So that is the guide you can go by if you make the right recipe. Whoop. So what I was doing to squish them down was using a piece of parchment paper and a glass measuring cup. This really helps be able to see how much you're squishing them. I think they were better a little bit thicker. Like I think thick, yeah, that's not gonna work. Do it with my fingers. But I thought a little bit thicker and a real thin coat of chocolate really tasted the best for these. Yeah, wetting it a little bit works. That one's a little bit too thin, I think. I think it's better that size. About 2 inches in diameter, I think. Be even easier for you because you won't need to do the water part. But this is how I was doing it yesterday. Real quick. Little squish. Little squish. Little squish. And it's too close to the edge. See, and that's what happens if you have too many on there and not in the right area. You end up squishing your other ones down. Okay, into the fridge, 10 minutes. Our timer just went off, so now it's time to melt some chocolate. If you're making a big batch of this, literally doubled works perfectly. I did it yesterday, and this method worked great. I don't know how well it's gonna work for me today, because I kind of messed up the recipe, but we'll see. Let's hope it's not a disaster. Now, I've done just a few tests of this, so I got a bunch of chocolate that is already here with coconut oil in it, but if you're doing it fresh with no coconut oil and all that, 4 ounces or close to a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Again, if you did a big batch, you need 8 ounces. This wasn't perfectly tempered, as you can see. This one was perfectly tempered. I'm adding just enough coconut oil to get it to flow a little bit better so that we can coat these nice and thin. But I have a trick that I did with these that makes it so much easier. Melt, always on 50% power, 30 seconds at a time until it starts to melt, and then 15 seconds, and then 10 seconds. Try not to go above 90 degrees. So if you're not using chocolate that's already been used, 4 ounces with 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of coconut oil. Popping this in the microwave. Definitely want to use this up because I've been buying so much keto chocolate and it's so expensive. I just use a fork to stir it because I'm using that to dip with too. So I might use some of this chocolate. If we get too hot, I might put another chunk in to cool it down. And that's been 1 minute and 20 and it's starting to melt. We're at 86. I'm only gonna do 10-second intervals now. And that didn't do much. But as soon as you go over the 10 seconds, that's when you overheat it. I swear. Every time. Yeah, and that was only 10 seconds more, and it's done. Just a couple of chunks in there. Doesn't feel too hot. Yep, we're at 91. So once those chunks are melted, we should be good to do our first dip. This is only enough to do one side of the York Peppermint Patties, and then we add a little bit more chocolate and melt it again to do the rest. And it worked perfectly. Okay. We're good. So that only took 1:40 seconds. We are now below 90. You will get some of the peppermint residue on the chocolate if you use the same parchment paper and you don't put it in a different spot. So I'm rather just do another full sheet tray, especially if you're doing a full batch, because it's going to take up the whole sheet tray anyways. You take one off, put it in, just kind of coat the bottom and sides. Scrape off excess, pop it back down and kind of smooth it out. Clean up any spots that might not have chocolate. You do a little design on top. So I just push it down a little bit. Over, and if you do that, add a little bit more. They're definitely softer. Try to do it evenly, not down like that. Sorry, my new freezer compressor is really loud. Probably can't tell while it's on, but then when it turns off, it's very noticeable. Probably gonna have to do this in 2 batches. If you make it correctly, I did all 26 yesterday in one go. It's getting bendy. I don't want them bending. Better to get off with a spatula. But you don't need to do that if you make it right. Once you get down to the end, you kind of gotta put it up on the edges. It's not deep anymore. Get all the chocolate off the edges. Whoa, it's getting too soft. Ooh. So if you mess up like me, you might want to put them in the freezer for a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna pop these into the freezer and we're gonna melt 2 more ounces of chocolate into this chocolate right here. So if you're doubling it, you do 4 more ounces. First sides are done, and melting more chocolate. We're a little bit high, but I think we're fine. There was a couple chips left in there. I'm saving this. I just flipped it over to use the other side of the parchment paper so we don't waste it. That's all set to go. Pull out the peppermint patties. You're really only gonna need, for this size batch, 4 ounces of chocolate. It's just the fact that it's really hard to dunk and only 1 ounce of chocolate left. So you gotta add 2 more ounces just to be able to get the dunk done on them. So make sure you get it all on the bottom there. Make sure if you didn't get the sides. You don't want a bunch on the top. Then I push it down a little bit to get that nice and flat. And that's it. Super easy. I would wait until they're all coated and then you can go back and add any more to tops or sides if you see holes, because you don't want that chocolate hardening too much before you get all the bottoms dunked. This is gonna harden harder faster because I had these in the freezer. I suggest you putting them in the fridge. If you made it right, just leaving it in the fridge will be fine. Clean off the sides every once in a while so you get more in the bottom. You can definitely use, dark chocolate, whatever you want for this. I thought it was dark chocolate, so that's what I used in the beginning. And then I read online that it's actually semi-sweet. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I'll use semi-sweet. Okay, now got all that left. Go through. Okay, put these back in the fridge. I'm gonna grab some of my ones I did yesterday because they look perfect. Okay, of course I had them in the freezer because I had so many that I knew I wasn't gonna need them all in the next couple of weeks. So I just threw them in the freezer just to get them out of my refrigerator. So I had to wait a while for them to defrost. Nice thin layer of chocolate on the outside. Perfect amount of complement to the peppermint filling. They're soft but chewy, pepperminty, and the melty semi-sweet chocolate. It's like pretty spot on to what I remember. It's been a long time since I had a York Peppermint Patty though, so I used my husband and my mom to try and, you know, pinpoint this recipe, but it's a little bit chewy and then it just like melts in your mouth with that chocolate. It's so good. It's been so long, but like you don't remember how good they are until you eat them again. It's not something you like, yeah, I'm gonna buy a York Peppermint Patty, but when they're sitting here, they're super refreshing and chocolatey and sweet and delicious. So good. And 2 of these are 1 net carb. If you're counting total carbs, this is out. Obviously there's tons of sugar alcohols in it, but they're technically only 1 net carb for 2 York Peppermint Patties. They are so good. 1 or 2 for like an after dinner snack. My grandma always had the buttermints, and I tried doing a batch of buttermints before and we just weren't good enough, but this is delicious. So I might try my hand at buttermints again. These are so delicious. You use these, top some brownies, top of some cheesecake for a chocolate peppermint cheesecake for Christmas. Tons of different things you can do with these, or just enjoy them as they are. They're so good. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe and it helps you out during the holiday season. Take a couple of these over to your family and friends' houses when they have all the Christmas chocolate decorations out and stuff, you know, for the holidays. And it's really tempting to grab some Christmas M&Ms or those Christmas Reese's cups that my mom always had in a jar for Christmas time, you know, the Christmas tree jar. We always had candy around the holidays, and this definitely satisfies that need for a little bit of sweet candy for the holidays. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link is down in the description box below, along with the blog link to the full recipe. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto, low-carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. And candy. Bye, guys. Happy keto baking or candy making, and Merry Christmas!